Jim's a pro.
Right.
He's been making a living as a professional photographer for I don't know, over 30 years. He's done the gamut. He has his own company. He's the founder of Applied Photography. They do a lot of architectural, residential photography, commercial, interior design, that kind of thing. And I think they're branching out, doing some product photography and whatnot. Jim has taught. He was a teacher back in 2008 for several years at Rancho Santiago College. He was the president of the Professional Photographers of California, 2014, and subsequently, I think, chairman of the board, something like that. He has entered competitions, shared with me that he entered the Orange County Fair once and got first place on one of his images.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Jim before I get into that, but Jim has done a showcase for us at least once. He has been a critique judge on a few occasions and done a print critique as well as digital. He's been a year-end judge for us. So Jim has been very supportive of the Laguna Hills Camera Club over the years, and Jim, we appreciate it. I met Jim in 2011. I had to go back and look. It was a year in which I won a prize, and Jim was the walkthrough judge. And so I tagged along with him and liked what he had to say. Later invited him to be a judge for us, and he's always done a good job for us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim.
Well, I'm humbled that at your memory, and it makes me sound old. Yeah, I learned my lesson that I got to stay out of politics. And you know, I enjoy the critique because it helps me get better. But I really am honored to be here with you guys. You know, there's some beautiful photography, and I love seeing that. And I was in San Diego yesterday at the San Diego County Fair judging, and you know, I get a kick out of it. It helps inspire me. It gives me an exposure to stuff that most of us don't get a chance to see. So, but thank you for allowing me to be here tonight, and I'll try to be pleasant with my critiques.
Okay, I will go ahead and share my screen, and we'll start the proceedings. Can everybody see that first slide?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So, okay, this is our May evaluation, and we start with the non-scored group. And the first picture is entitled, oops, sorry, that was my fault. I've got something in the way here. Hang on a minute. Okay, the first picture is entitled Fly Trap.
My initial comment was, wow. Amazing. I assume it's a macro shot of this fly trap. I would like to have seen a little more definition on the left, little more light coming through on the left-hand side to delineate the fingers or whatever the trap mechanism is there. But that's really stunning. I'd be very curious to know how the maker got the whether that's water or glycerin on the trap. But that's my only comment on that one. Just lighten up the left-hand side. I think that's stunning. Next image.
This is untitled number 3.
Untitled number 3.
Yes.
Nicely done. Very nice. You know, I assume it's a cut-in. The cutting in is very, very good, as best I could see in the PowerPoint. There are a couple of things that I know you can't control, but the symmetry of the fence, if you're doing a bunch of Photoshop on this anyways, move the fence over so it's centered on the, if you'd centered on the rails on the jumps, and then move the fence over a little bit. But the cutouts of the rider and the horses is really well done. We cut stuff out all the time, and I'm telling you, whoever did this is really good at it. It's a very, very well done piece. But I would manipulate it a little bit, like when you line up in the center of that, because it's a little bit off. And the fence, if you had moved to the right, it would have pushed the fence over more if you moved to the left, it would have pushed the fence more to the right perspective, but you could move that back over to center that and get everything squared up so it's perfectly centered. I think that would have helped the image. Next.
Working the cutback.
Comments were strong image. I think it needs some more saturation. The water needs to be blued up just a little bit, especially in the foreground. I know it's green, but it needs a little more zip to it. The body needs a little more light on it, and I wish I could see more of his expression. I know you got it, posing better, but just I'd like to see a little more of his facial expression. So maybe from a slightly different angle, or waiting a moment more till he cut a little bit harder or cut back a little bit more. That's it. Next comment. Next.
Clio Street Beach.
I think I know this place, and it's, what a beautiful spot. Very, I love the serenity of the image. There are a couple of things that I would like to see is, if you look at the house and you look at the on the left, the tenting on the left and the house on down at the bottom, they're tilted like this. You got to straighten that up so that it's perspectively correct. Because when you look down on it, it doesn't look like that, but the camera causes that kind of a problem. So when you straighten that, a couple of things are going to happen. You're going to lose that purple at the bottom and that little red thing on the right. The red thing kind of bothered me, and the fence on the left, over on the left-hand side, about a third of the way up. That and that red caught my eye. But well done. I think the horizon line not in the center, and all the points of composition are good on that. Next.
Untitled number 1.
Yep, and that was one of the strongest ones that I saw. The time of day and capture is amazing. The timing, everything. Obviously this was an exposure that was a little bit longer, because look at the flag. My comments were, consider moving. Okay, you've got a subject who's looking out of the frame. Consider moving the lighthouse to the left, and that putting him in the center, so that the lighthouse would be in the left third. He's in the center looking out, giving him more space. That's was my comment. It's a beautiful image. I think that should have been entered in scoring. Next.
Nature's camouflage.
Yep.
Rodney and Jim, I'm getting a couple of comments that people are having a hard time hearing Jim. Rodney, I think yours is loud enough, but Jim, you might need to bump up your volume. People are saying that they've got their volumes as high as they can go, and it's hard.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that better?
I think
1, 2, 3.
rough.
1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll turned it all the way up. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right.
I think obviously the composition is good. Yes, there is a lot of camouflage. Time of day is great. I would say this image needs to be entered into competition. This is a great image as it stands. Maybe a little more detail in the bird's face around his eyes. Pull that out a little bit. Bring the whites back just a little bit. But it's a great image. Next.
Worker bee.
Lighting's great. Composition is good. I'd crop it. in tighter.
Mhm.
I'd crop some of that stuff on the left and maybe get it in tight.
Mhm.
So you're looking more at the B and there's less distraction over here on the left and down in the bottom. But I really do like that. I really do like it's sharp. There's good light on it.
Mhm.
Obviously there was some light used. Look at the reflection on his back. But all in all, I would say it's a good, strong image. Next.
Joie de vivre.
It's a great action shot. Timing is great. It's a memory that'll be cherished by the daughter and even the grandparents. I assume that's who took it. As far as what category would it come in? Action, probably not. Family, lifestyle, that kind of thing. I think that would be a genre that it could possibly be entered in, but it really lends itself more to a snapshot or a family photo rather than an image competition photo. My opinion. Next.
Lines and light.
Again, I asked the question, why didn't you enter this? There's a couple of things that I would, okay, the light's cut off at the top. One comment. I don't know how much room the maker has. Maybe if you just shrink it a little bit. I don't mind this bottom left-hand corner at all. That's fine. And if you shrink that down, it's got all the light in there. Other than that, I would say it speaks right to the title. It's a great shot and well composed. And there's no blown out highlights, and you do have dark and you have detail in the shadow areas. Next.
Untitled number 2.
My comment on this one is I love the tonal aspects of the image. The time of day, the details, the processing, whatever was done. The only thing that it feels like the foreground's compressed. In other words, the image was taken like this and was made like this. That's the feeling I get from it. Maybe if you took out, because where's the subject? Is the subject the foreground or is the subject the background? Maybe cut it off just below that tray, pulled it down so you made those buttes bigger in the background. That might add some strength to the image, and then I'd resubmit it. Next.
Hold your breath.
That's great. Great shot. Again, the water's a bit on the gray side for me. I'm not sure if there's anything you do about that, but and maybe a little more detail in his face would help out. But it's a great action shot. There's no question about it. Next.
Untitled number 5.
Very good timing. The one thing that about this one, when you're photographing this kind of thing, you want the rider and the horse to be going in the same direction, showing, the rider's in control rather than looking off at what the next jump is. The rider is focused on with the horse in that one direction. That would be my only comment. And I know, again, tell her to pose better, right? But the exposure is great. The composition is good. The horse is jumping into the frame rather than out of the frame. Only comment is I would have look at her posture on the horse. Okay, next.
Got lunch?
Got lunch. Yep. I would tighten up the time of day, the lighting. Needs a little. First of all, the brightest point in the photograph is the rock on the right. Okay, that's got to go. It's too bright. It competes with, because the bird's the darkest area and his mouth is the darkest area, well, almost the darkest area except for the shadow on the rock. It competes with the bird. So I think you got to focus more in on the bird if you can. And make whatever's in his mouth more prominent. Next.
Cloudy all day.
Wow, beautiful shot. I don't know if this is black and white or infrared or what it is, but it's pretty good. Sorry about that. Phone went off. It really is a good photograph. I would, the title of Cloudy All Day, I would crop more in, probably at least 2/3 of this rock formation or half the rock formation on the right. I would crop that, and I would crop some more of this bottom out and bring those clouds up, because really it's about clouds. And so let's increase the amount of cloud space there is in the image, rather than, maybe just pull the bottom right down some. That would help make the clouds bigger, basically, was my comment. Next.
Untitled number 4.
Wow. Again, why didn't you enter this? This is stunning. This is just beautiful. Especially, I really, between the face and the feathers just skimming the water, it really is a stunning image. On the hunt. Okay, next.
Abandoned house.
I really like this. I like this kind of stuff. I wanted to travel around to the United States to all the different states, and never have really been able to do that yet. And I really enjoy this kind of old stuff to photograph. The tree's not cut off. I like this, how the tree is incorporated with the house. It's not cut off. The maker included it on the right-hand side. There's tension between the house and the tree, and but it's framed well with this bush on the left. I think the maker did a really good job. Okay.
Okay, that's the end of our non-scored category, and we continue on next to pictorial, and the first image is Green Serenity.
I scored this an 8.5. Very well composed and well exposed. The only comment I have about it, and what kept from going higher, were the highlights on that main leaf in the center appear to be blown out. If those were toned back, I think that's a very, very, very strong image. Next.
Ranunculus in a vase.
I love the lighting. I love the composition. I love just the whole feel of the still life. My one comment was the vase appears to be leaning, and I'm not sure if maybe just by tilting it a little bit, obviously camera, it looks like it was shot a little off. It needs to be square up. I think other than that, it's very well done. And I'm sorry, I scored this an 8. Next.
Graceful landing.
Wow. I scored this an 8.5. It's tack sharp everywhere. It's very, very well done. The bird is tack sharp. Everything else is soft. It's amazing how the maker was able to use the eye focus, as somebody pointed out a minute ago, on this particular image. The comments that I would have about it is there are some water droplets. Well, if he's coming in for a landing, where'd the water coming from? Down near his feet. I think there was one off to the right on one of the edges of one of his feathers. I would clean those up. And other than that, I think that's a really, and maybe darken down that background a little bit, create a little more separation between the bird and the background. But very well done. Next.
Nomad resting.
I scored this a 6.5, and the concept I think is really good. The composition, I like the composition, and the light on the woman's face keeps pulling me there, and then my eye goes to her cart, and then back to her, and so it really tells a story. The one thing that kept me from going higher is there's nothing in focus. At least I can't see anything in focus on my end. So next.
Porcupine fish, little caiman.
Very nice capture. Underwater photography is something I've never been able to do because I don't dive. But nice capture. Surprised you could get that close to him. I would tone down his mouth. The brights are just too bright, and I think it would make the colors come out a little bit more. It needs just a little more saturation on the colors, but tone that mouth down and his belly down there too a little bit. That's it. Next.
What was the score on that one?
And an 8. Can you hold on just a second?
Yep.
Sorry, folks. I had one of my photographers had a fire. Okay. Next image.
Open wide.
I scored this 7.5. My only comment is that the image needs to be, in my opinion, needs to be compressed. I like the lighting. I like but where's the light on his face coming from? Is that coming from the light on the left? Or maybe that light should be shining at the subject. I would try to compress it and bring everything closer, including him, closer to the camera. So it appeared that, he was right over the top of you rather than stretched out like that. Again, I scored it a 7.5. Next.
Inside of studio.
Great studio. Wish I had one like this. I scored it a 7.5 also. As for the image, there's a color cast on the right-hand side that isn't on the left. It appears to be a bit of a yellow cast. You got to neutralize that down, in my opinion. The C stand on the left is out of focus. But why? Because the legs are in focus, but the stand is not. So that caught my eye. There's tape on all of them. You need to clean up that tape. That's a distraction, again, my opinion. And the last thing is over on the right-hand side on that scrim that you've got there on the bottom. At first I thought it was a speck on the image, but in fact, it's a tie down. It's a white tie on that scrim. I think if you just took that out and maybe brightened it up just a hair, I think that you've got a real powerful image there. Next.
Old barn on the hill.
Old barn on the hill, I scored this as 7.5, and nice composition. The painting effect that appears to have been applied is nice, but I'm not sure that it's called for on this kind of an image. Also straighten the barn. The barn looks like it's tilted, and that's more a function of, normally not all the lines are tilted. I would straighten it up the barn, maybe just pull the bottom out a little bit, bottom left, and that would straighten it up and pull back, especially on the cloud area. Okay, I understand the painter and all that, but the foreground needs a little more detail and the clouds need a little more detail. Next.
Foggy weather.
Well composed and well exposed. Dynamic range isn't too great, but still, it's not an easy image to capture. The one thing that I would that kind of distracted me is that the person on the right hand side, that keeps drawing my eye there rather than to the scene. I keep going, want to go to that person, take that person out, and I think it's well done.
Score.
Next.
Score.
Oh, I'm sorry. I scored it an 8.
Okay. Yoga Pelican style.
Yeah. This is great. I scored it a 7.5, but I definitely would have gone higher if the crop had been much tighter and focused just on him, and the seagull and the other part of the pelican was gone. I think, you know, there's too many distractions in there when for what the title and what this image is really all about. It's the yoga that he's doing. He's standing on both legs, but he's got that wing up and his head cocked under. Make that more prominent in the image. Next.
Stemware.
I scored this 7.5, and I like it. I think it's a great still life. My comment is that the image needs to be brighter and have a little more contrast to it. The flower should be almost to the white, and it just needs a little more light on it. Whether you do that in Photoshop or you do that with your exposure when you capture it with extra lighting or something, but I would bring up the light in it significantly. Scored a 7.5.
Flowers galore.
I scored this 7.5, and I like the presentation and the subject composition. It needs some sharpening because it just seems like everything's sharp in it, but nothing's really sharp, super sharp, and it needs a little more. I don't want to say contrast because the whites are already pretty hot, but it needs maybe a little more saturation, just a little more. Maybe dehaze would be a good one to use on it. I don't know. We'd have to test it, but it needs a little more punch. Let's put it that way. I scored it a 7.5.
Morning along the Douro.
Great morning shot. Great morning shot. The image appears to be tilted to the left. And the reason I say that is look at the verticals on the buildings. Buildings are tilted. So I would tilt that back up where it belongs, and I think that would help. And I'm not sure if that's blue haze or what that is in the middle, but that's a bit of a distraction. And yeah, and perhaps you could wait, if that is haze, till it burns off, or deal with it in a different way and maybe a separate exposure for that particular area. But it's well done, and I scored that a 7.
Big gulp.
Nice capture, but it needs to be sharp. It's not very sharp. His tail feather is, but his head's not. And I think you could crop in a lot more on that to be a big gulp. And I scored it a 7.
Stella.
I scored Stella a 6.5, and love the puppy. No question about it. What I would suggest with this is perhaps the background should be different, and having Stella looking at the camera or off so you can see both eyes might have made it a lot stronger.
Right.
Next.
The cutback.
Again, nice action shot. Would like to see a bit more of the cutback and his leg, as he's coming out of it. His leg is completely hidden by the water. And his face appears to be not as sharp as his hands, which might hold it back. And I scored that an 8. Next.
My Clivia.
Scored it an 8. And the image is a bit soft, but it's well exposed and well captured. There are a couple of spots on the edge of that third leaf up, right in the center of the frame, that I think could be cleaned up a little bit with some Photoshop work, just a touch up. But I think it's very well done. It just needs to be a little sharper. And I scored it an 8. Okay.
High Jumper.
I scored this an 8.5, a good capture. And the only comment is that the rider was, I would like to have seen the rider looking in the same direction as the horse. But look at the posture on this rider. His posture is much better. He's just not looking in the same direction. Now the horse is looking a little bit off to the side, but not at the same distance as the rider.
A Quiet Corner.
Quiet Corner, I scored it a 7. It's nicely exposed. I probably would have tried a lower point of view. So gotten down a little bit lower, and so that, where's the corner, I guess is the question. So maybe a little bit of different composition, but the exposure is really good.
At Home.
I scored this a 7, and it's good timing. The flash position appears to have a flash. Look at the catch light in his eye and above his head. The flash position is causing a deep shadow behind the owl and the right side of his face. Maybe with the light a little more to the left, that might have helped a bit. The other question I have is, why is the left side of the wood soft, but the right side soft, but the left side sharp? It doesn't, and his face is sharp. So it doesn't, I don't understand quite the composition there. So that would be my comment on that particular one.
Vaping for Inspiration.
I scored this again, an 8, and I would say it's a good capture. Timing is everything. It might lighten it up a little bit, and his face especially, so we could see him. My comment on it tonight.
Okay. Sun Freckles.
I scored this Sun Freckles an 8. It's a nice capture. I like I would like to see the eyes lit up a little bit more, but the freckles on the face, and which that's creative. And maybe tone down the bottom half a little bit and bring up the eyes just a little bit would be my suggestion.
Flaps Down.
Flaps Down. I scored this an 8. An 8. And and I would have gone to an 8.5, but want the background to be a little darker, just a little darker around him. Bring him out, make him really, I mean, he pops already, but by pulling the background down a little bit, I think it would be really stunning. It's tack sharp. Boy, you guys are good at that.
San Clemente Pier.
San Clemente Pier, I scored this a 7. And it's a nice capture. It's just the wrong time of day. In the morning or later in the afternoon, I think you could have a much more dynamic image. There's also approximately a 2-pixel white line that runs around all the features of the pier, from the lifeguard station on the right-hand side, all the poles all the way down. I don't know if it was sharpening or it's just a sensor, a contrast in the sensor, but that fringing needs to be taken out. The other comment is on the left-hand side, because the camera wasn't perfectly level and square, the left side is tilted in. Look at the lamppost on the left and the railings on the left. just a simple pull out with the perspective tool would straighten that right up.
Orange Beauty.
7.5, beautiful capture. Focus is off though. The butterfly's black back wing, excuse me, is soft, but the front of the flower and the half the stem is in focus. Perhaps a different focus point would have helped. Also, the spider web is a bit of a distraction down at the bottom.
Emergency door lock.
That's great. I scored this a 7.5. It's a great idea. It needs a little more contrast, and I'd kind of like to see where the wire is going on the other side. Is it stuck in a hole, a rusty hole on the side of the metal that goes inside, or where is it? How is it secured on the other end?
It's a small world.
Wow, this is amazing. This is very well done. You got a very slow moving subject, so that's good. I wonder if you used a piece of lettuce to bait him to stretch out so much. I scored this an 8.5. I think there's one other thing. I'd like to see, he's a little tight on the left-hand side. I would have liked to see a little more on the edge, on the left-hand edge. But so he wasn't quite pinned into his shell pinned in, and maybe just a little more detail on the top of the shell, but it's a very, very strong image. Great done. Well done.
Deadly Serious.
I scored this an 8.5, but it needs to be cropped in tight. That's a bird of prey. You need to focus in on it, bring it in tighter. Well done though. Sharp, all the detail in the feathers. Really nice capture.
Cactus Circle.
I scored this a 7, and I encouraged maker to try it again. Just try it at a different time of day. Lighting is real flat. Next.
My Heart is in Bloom.
I scored this 6.5. It's good exposure, but the focus is off. The leaves, the black leaves with the highlights, real bright highlights, they kind of compete with the plant, with the flower. I'd pull them out or crop them out or something. Yeah, pull out that bottom and maybe darken down this, because the left side is dark, but the right side is bright. And none of the inside of the flower is sharp. The petals on the outside, but not the center of it. So that's my comment there.
Yellow Radiance.
8.5. Wow. There is a little area around his antennae up at the top that kind of looks soft or fuzzy. On his left one, it's kind of magenta, and on the right one, it's kind of darkish, whatever. Just smooth that out, I think. And in the circle of his beak, there's some of that artifacting also. I don't know if it's from the depth of field, the bouquet, as they call it, or whatever. But those are things that I'd clean up just a little bit, but a very strong image.
Building with Daddy.
I scored this a 7. It's a great bonding time with daddy and daughter. Next.
Malia.
I scored this a 7. I like the concept of what the maker was trying to do, but there are some technical problems. The highlights on her face are too bright. There's a yellow cast to it, and that needs to be taken out and bring it down. Her hair needs some help. There's a lot of flyaways going on, and get it off of her neck and that kind of thing. on the right-hand side, some, again, flyaways. And if she's going to be holding the Coke bottle almost to an advertising point, turn the name so that the name is visible all the way.
Oh,
Next.
score.
Sorry.
So
Oh, I'm
score.
sorry. Malia was a 7.
Okay. And Bounty.
Love it. I scored this an 8. Nice composition and good capture. There are 3 things that kind of I was a little concerned about. One, okay, where's the main source of light? It appears it's coming in from the left, but then where's that light coming from the right? I'm kind of, yeah, okay, I get it. Maybe there's a window on either side, but the reflections on the apples tell me that there's probably 2 light sources, but they're too strong because my eye keeps going there. And then that vase just keeps drawing my eye there. So there's like 4 or 5 focus points. There needs to be one focus point. Maybe the fruit need to be brought in tighter. But all that stuff needs to be toned down so it looks more natural. I scored it an 8.
That's the end of the pictorial category. And now we go on to the monochrome. It's only a seagull.
It's only a seagull. I scored this an 8. I really like it. I think that the background fits well with it. I think that the capture does. Like to have seen a little more black, maybe just a little more contrast, but I think it's well done. Scored it an 8.
Delightful.
I scored this an 8.5. A great capture of this particular rose, and there's blacks and there's detail in the shadows, and the whites aren't blown out.
Spinning wheel.
I scored this 7.5, and my only comment is that I get why the maker did it in black and white, but I think it might have been a stronger image had it been done in color. It just, there's blacks and there's whites and there's grays, but I think it would hold the attention of the viewer and draw them in more if there was some more color in it.
Egret waiting.
I scored egret rating a 7, and I think there's too many distractions or obstructions of the bird. I know you can't pose him, but maybe a different vantage point would have separated him from all the bush.
Pristine snow.
Pristine snow. I scored this a 7.5, and I think I would have gone higher, but it appears to be pretty soft. It appears the tree is sharp, but everything else is just kind of falling off. So that's a hard one to, if you're close to the tree, and you can't compress it. If you're back and you compress it, then everything's sharp, but this way it's sharp, but I think the background's a little on the soft side.
Evening snack.
I scored this a 7, and the primary reason is because of the haloing fringe around the bird, and you can't tell what he's got in his mouth. I think it needs to be tighter. I like the trail, and I like the fact that he's going out of it, but it needs to be somehow tighter on him to show that he's got food in his mouth.
Tulips galore.
Well done. I scored this an 8.5. I like it. I like it in black and white. It works. It's strong. There's lots of tension, lots of subject in there, lots of bright and dark, and it keeps my eye moving through it, and I just want to explore it. It's really well done.
I am coming for you.
Another one I scored an 8.5. Wow. You guys are really good at these wildlife photos. That's the timing and the posing. Take my hat off to the maker on this one. They scored it an 8.5.
Looking up.
I scored this one an 8.5. I really like it. And I don't mind the fact that the lines aren't straight. I think that helps make it with the title, Looking Up. Well done.
Mona Lisa smile.
I scored this an 8. I think the Mona Lisa smile. How do I describe it? I think I need a little more of a Rembrandt triangle on the individual's face. The lighting on the left side of the face needs to be more Rembrandt lighting, so it needs to be brighter. The left side is fine. The right side needs a little more detail in it, especially around the eyes. And there's a dichotomy there. There's because is this a man or is this a woman? There's an Adam's apple, so that leads me to believe it's a man, but then with the pearls, and now it could be from another country, and so it's well done, but I scored it an 8.
Here's Looking at You.
I scored this 7.5. And my suggestion to the maker is tone down his fur and let his face come out, because the first place I go is his hip, not his face. And it's a bit on the soft side, especially around his face and whiskers.
Wanted.
I scored this a 7. Not because I didn't like the image, but I think that you could clean up some of the hairs on the stray hairs, just the big ones, not all of them, but it's out of focus. If you look at his beard, there's no detail in his skin or in his beard there. Yeah, it's out of focus, so needs to better focus on that.
Split up.
That's I was thinking when this first split up, I scored a 7 when I was 7. When it first came up, I was thinking, what other angle could you get? But there is no other angle you could get to show what the maker captured. There are a couple of things that I think could have made it stronger. And number one is that if the shadow on the left of the statue on the right, the piece, 3-piece, if the shadow on the left was incorporated and the bottom of the pedestal corners were incorporated, I think that would have made it stronger. And maybe back up and zoom in a little bit to compress it a little bit, and from just a little more, and I think that would have helped. And then maybe just a little more, not contrast, but yeah, maybe contrast would have helped it a little bit. Just on the metal, so bringing the blacks up a little bit on the metal, but the background's a little hot tone. I'm talking about the marble and the cement. That's a little bit on the hot side compared to everything else. Pull that down a little bit, and I think it's pretty good capture.
First, second, and third.
I believe that's a trumpet, isn't it? From my days in grammar school. I scored this a 7, and I really like the concept of what the maker was trying to do, but there's a couple of things that it's, while that center one is centered, it's not centered in the frame because the other two are off. So it's been shot at an angle. It needs to be shot square on. If you're going to center it, and don't cut off the third one on the right with so much on the left, would be my comment. Not sure what all the dirt is or shavings on the bottom half of the what do they call them? The plungers. There's a lot of shavings there, but I like the concept. I just think that the maker needs to take a little more think about the composition a little bit more, and when shooting it.
Road to Nowhere.
I scored a 7.5. I really like it. I think it needs a little bit of something, a little bit of drama, a little more drama to it. It's pretty flat, and it needs a little more contrast maybe, but it's a road to somewhere. Just don't know where. But I do like it. I think it was well thought out. I think it just needs a little more improvement on the post-production.
Looking Regal.
Looking Regal. I scored this an 8, and I probably would have gone higher, but I don't see any true whites. I see a lot of black, but I don't see any true whites, and I really can't see his right eye. I see the edges of it, but not his eye. Come around a little bit more, make him turn his head just a little bit more. But it's sharp, and it's well done. I just think it needs a slightly different composition. Next.
So that's the end of monochrome. And our next category is the special subject, which is this month is patterns. And to the point. To the point. Ouch. I scored this an 8.5, and I think it's very well done. The maker got to the point of this one. I think it's very well done. I like the composition on it. Maybe these little black spots down the bottom could have gone away, but I think it was well done. Floral Delight.
Another 8.5. Stunning. This is a great capture. Might have gone higher if some of the little yellow pieces of pollen were not quite so prominent, especially down in the bottom left quadrant, 7 o'clock point. But overall, it's really a strong image.
Nature's Design.
Unfortunately, I scored this a 7, and the reason I like the composition, I like the idea, but it's just not. There's nothing sharp in the image.
Light and Shadows at the Taj.
Light and Shadows at the Taj, I scored a 7.5. Really wanted to like this when it came around, but it's not centered. If you simply take that and put a line in the center of it, you'll find that if the bottom's on, the top is off by about 1/8 of an inch. A simple correction, you can do some perspective control real quick just by putting a line in the middle, a guide in the middle, and you can straighten that up. I think that would make it a real stronger image. Let's put it that way. I scored a 7.5.
Whimsical Shapes.
Whimsical Shapes, I scored a 7.5. I would like to see a tighter crop, maybe on just the center pieces, and eliminate those two on the left and a little on the right, the two on the right and a little on the left, and focus in more on the pattern there, and maybe amp up a little bit of contrast and a little bit of saturation would help raise that up, I think.
Patterns Above.
Patterns above, I scored a 7. And again, I think it needs a different cropping, maybe a different composition also, but where are the patterns? Are the patterns the stars or the patterns the roofing? Is there, I think maybe a different composition or a different crop of that might make it a little bit stronger.
Peruvian landscape.
Love it. I scored this an 8. It really is man, I'm not sure what it was when it first came around. I thought, is that a dinosaur? Look at the backbone there, and but then I see this. Maybe that's a platypus that's down at the bottom, and then I look at the title again, and oh, wait a minute, this is a shot from an airplane, and it's very well done. Maybe a little more contrast, but I think it's very, very well done. I scored it an 8.
Rock River.
I scored this 7, and while I get the concept of the Rock River, I think which rock, the shale or the rocks or the round rocks, and then we've got the ones above it. I think maybe just a slightly different point of view. I want to see more of the bottom below those two blue stones. I want to see a little more like this, and that could have created more of a flow in it, in my opinion. And it needs a little more lighting of some kind. It's real soft, and soft light time of day. Maybe when the light's scraping across the top of the rocks, it might add to it. It's pretty flat. It needs to scrape it. So that's my comment on it.
Going Nowhere.
Going Nowhere, I scored a 7.5. The exposure is good, but it's high noon, or not high noon, but sun's high in the sky. You can see where the shadows are. I think a different perspective. You got to get lower and show me where it's going nowhere. If you got down lower, then you'd have the green and the red and the yellow there, and you could sweep it across. The other point that I noticed is that the only thing that's sharp is down here in the foreground. Everything else is soft. I might have moved my focus point from about 1 inch in on the image, however far that is, probably 6 to 8 inches. I probably would have focused up maybe a third of the way into the image so that the foreground and the background had a little more sharpness through the first half, and then it could fall off at the end. But I think it needs to be a little sharper, deeper into the image.
Window and shadow patterns.
Window and shadow pattern, I scored a 7.5. I really like it, but it's just not, well, there's a couple problems. One, it's skewed. Okay. So it's not square. And that's a simple bring that top right corner up or bring that bottom left corner out. But by bringing it out, you're going to lose. You need to bring it in. If there's more to this image, which I think there is, bring in that top right-hand corner so that you capture the light coming through and you're not cutting it off. I think that would help that image dramatically. And maybe a little kick in the saturation to bring up the colors a little bit in that glass, especially the back one, because the back one is smaller than the big one. So your eye wants to go, and that yellow would keep the tension going. So it would keep you interested in the image and looking what's going on throughout it. Next.
Flower field.
Flower field. I scored this an 8. This is really great. It's centered. It's geometrically well done. I'm trying to figure out all the parts and pieces. It's not symmetrical, because if it was, then the green pieces in the center wouldn't be at 2:30 and 8:30. They'd be at 9 and 3. Mm-hmm. So it's not. And then the flowers in the corner aren't. So how did the maker do this? I think it's very creative and well done. the key line may be a little bit strong, but maybe cut that in half. But all in all, I think it's a well thought out rendering of pattern.
Yellow Brick Road.
Yellow Brick Road, I scored it an 8. Good idea. How did you get the yellow? That's what my question is. The other thing is maybe compress it in a little bit so I get more of the road. And the road tends to get cut off in the top right hand, and I don't need that corral or the fence on the left because I've got the road and it's showing how where's the next turn in it. Maybe just a slightly lower point of view might have, I don't know it looks like there may be a reflection from a tree, a shadow from a tree up there, but a little more of that road would be helpful.
Patterns of productivity.
Patterns of productivity, I scored an 8. And I really like it. This is kind of like find the lady in the pink hat. And she's in the bottom right-hand corner. I would certainly think about squaring up the shot a little bit, especially the hut on the left looks like it's fallen over. It may have been, but by simply pulling out that corner, I think, or in warp, you could twist that a little bit and fix that so it's not so so strong of falling over, and it needs a little more contrast to it, I think. But I scored it an 8. Well done.
Slats and shadows.
Slats and shadows. I scored this a 7.5, and I think the only reason I do was because it needs to be tighter crop. Slats and shadows, I agree, but I don't need all that stuff at the top, and I definitely don't need the stuff at the bottom.
Taking flight.
Love it. I'm assuming these are some kind of feather or something. I don't know what they are, but it's really beautiful. I scored this an 8.5. Bring up the whites just a little bit, and I think I could have gone all the way up with this one. Really beautiful.
La Purissima Mission.
Scored an 8.5. Well done, Maker. Lines are straight. I love the depth of field. I love the fact that you're just slightly off center with the mission and all the lines driving you in. I think I would cut off a portion of the bottom right up to the edge of where the rocks meet, rocks on the wall are diagonal all the way down to the end. I think I would have cut that off. I think that would make it a little stronger. There's too much foreground in my opinion. Other than that, it's great.
Organ symmetry.
I scored this an 8.5, and I'm telling you, I had a really hard time not going to 9 with it. But the only thing that held me back is it's not symmetrical. If you put a line down the center, you'll notice the top peak is off to the left, and the bottom peak it's just basically tilted. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse, but I see things like that all the time. I think the other thing, if you look at the two on the outside, if you simply took and straightened it up like this, just a little bit, brought the edges out, that would straighten that whole thing, and it would be perfectly symmetrical. You're going to shoot it symmetrical, it's got to be spot on. And use the guides in Photoshop. You can throw as many guides in there you want, and then just work it until it gets perfect, because even off a little bit, it just jumps up and bite you. And as I say, I scored this an 8.5, and this was definitely, to me, one of the strongest images of the night.
That's the end of the special subject, and now we go on to the artistic expression category. The staircase.
Wild. This reminds me of the Dali Museum in Figueres, Spain. I scored this an 8.5, and again, I would have gone all the way up to a 9. But the things that held me back is if in the peak up at the top and the peak at the bottom's cut off. If just tilt it a little bit, I think with all those lines, it might have been a little stronger if the bottom hadn't been cut off like that. But I think it's a well executed image. Just needs a little, maybe if the maker has the whole image, you can just turn it a little bit and go from there. Next.
Fruit-filled cruets.
Boy, I wanted to take this one all the way to the top. And if it hadn't been for the fact of the reflections in the bottles, like for instance, there's a person in the right-hand bottle, there's a person in the reflection. Is that meant to be there or not? There's a light behind that person. That's what's causing the shadow that I see. In the center, I can see the tripod and camera. Mm-hmm. On the left, I see a house, like the back porch or the back porch looking into the sliding glass door. What I suggest that you do when we're photographing stainless steel, what we do is we use white. In this case, I would use black because you're in a black environment. Get some black paper and create a cove out of it, whether paper or cardboard or whatever, but create a cove and cut a hole in it and put the lens through the hole in the black. That would take all that reflection out. So now all of a sudden, as you have the color that you so diligently tried to light on the left and bring out in the bottles, that obviously backlighting it, you've got an orange and an apple and it looks like a lemon in there. You're using that light, but the problem is there's too many reflections on the bottle. So you use a black piece of paper or cardboard to make a cove out of it, cut a hole in it, and that would help eliminate that. But that's pretty well done. I mean, look at the top center. Also, you can see it's shot on a patio, it appears. So,
what was the score on that?
The title was
the score on Fruit-Filled Cruets.
I scored it an 8.
Okay. Pretty.
I scored this a 8, and I think that it just needs a little more sharpness in the center of the flower. The rest of it is great. I think that the contrast between the yellow and the red and the white, I think, works really well. The blue in the bottom right-hand corner kind of bothered me a little bit, but kept pulling my eye over there. But I think that center, the pestle area, needs some more oomph to it to bring it out. Next.
Flying fish.
I scored this 6.5, and I'm not sure where the flying fish is, but looks more like a koi to me. But the tail's cut off, and there's no detail in the fish. You can't tell. It looks like the whole thing's in focus. So that my subject, while that's my subject's cut off. So I scored it a 6.5.
Summertime.
Scored this an 8.5. Love it. Love it. The reflection in the bowls, maybe that one on the left, maybe knock that down a little bit, but the angle, the lighting, the effort that the maker went to put this in, this is really good. Scored an 8.5.
Completing an aerial.
Again, I scored this one an 8.5, and I probably would have gone higher with a little more contrast. It appears to be a little bit flat. If you look at the right image and the second this of the surfer, the second image, compare the shirt on the one on the left, they don't have the same intensity. The one on the left is a lot more intense than the ones on the right. And I would have expected to see the same. The same with look at the faces and the color and density on the faces. Now I realize you're probably trying to create that draw, but still I think that, but it's well done. I mean, it's well executed. The cut-ins are good. Maybe on this third guy's arm, clean that up a little bit so it's not quite, looks like it might got cut off a little bit there. But other than that, I think it's a great capture and great Photoshop work.
Green thumb.
I love it. That's great. I scored it an 8, and I think it just needs a little. And I think you've got a very high key image here, and I think that there needs to be a little more contrast in his hand on his skin. His skin is too bright, especially on the forearm. And I'm not sure why his arm has that big bulge down there in the bottom left, or on the bottom left of the image. But I think the detail is pretty good. Definitely detail in the tomato. His fingers are a little less, but still, I think it's a pretty good special effects artist expression. Scored it a 7.5. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I scored it an 8. My apologies.
Watching.
Watching. I scored this a 7.5. And I think the primary reason was because it's just really pixelated. I'm not sure what caused it, but it just seems like, okay, I get the texture on him, but if you look closely at it, there's a real high texture on the rocks behind him also that looks like it was from sharpening, maybe a little over sharpened, and maybe you can tighten up the crop a little bit too.
Support for PETA.
I scored this a 7.5. Excuse me, I scored this a 7. And I'm not sure if the reflection in the window is supposed to be there or not. I can't tell. There's a reflection of what appears to be a man in the window. And I can't discern. I mean, I get the PETA program, but it makes me wonder if that's a reflection of somebody standing back there when this was captured. I think the capture could have been a little lower also, so that it wasn't, you weren't looking down at it so much as more at it. That probably would have helped, in my opinion.
Umbrella Alley.
Love it. Scored it an 8.5. It's stunning. Key line's a little strong, but I tend to favor a lighter key line, maybe half that amount on the green. The white I don't mind, and the script at the bottom is well done. That's a gallery piece, I think.
I know you're taking my picture.
That's cute. I scored it a 7. 2 problems. One, she's walking out of the frame and she's not looking at the camera. And number 2, nothing's in focus. At least not that I could tell. Nothing's in focus. I would have expected at least her face to be in focus. So.
Okay. Well, that concludes our images for tonight. The next critique is July 26th. Congratulations to everybody who participated, and thanks to our judge. And I will stop sharing, and we can open it up for any discussion.
Thank you, Jim. It was very educational. We definitely appreciate all your comments and learn from that.
I hope it wasn't too critical.
That's your job.
Yeah.
It's called a critique.
Okay, all right, I
We
give up.
don't expect you to just give everybody hugs and kisses.
I have to work on my bribery scheme. I keep getting 6.5s.
You just
You're
keep
a
getting,
failure, Rodney.
you keep getting what?
6.5s.
Oh, you didn't get all. You
I
didn't
didn't get all
all.
6.5s. No.
You did not.
I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's excellent.
Thanks.
We learn a lot.
Oh,
Good job, Jim.
Mhm.
thank
And I
you.
was really
I think
happy.
You picked on some stuff that that we don't always look at in our classes.
Mhm.
And I gotta say, yeah, I really got, I learned a lot from your observations tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Being an architectural photographer, I am, as I stated before, blessed and cursed with
You did-
a detail, just a terrible affliction of looking at details because my customers see it and they make comment about it, and so I have to be very diligent at that, and I mean, you've got some beautiful photographs in the group, and I think that you guys are doing well. This is a great group of people. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it.
Thanks. I was really glad to know that some of our new members and fairly new photographers have ventured forth trying
Right.
out the critique. So it's a really good learning
Yes.
experience for people that haven't tried it before too.
And I am aware of one of our new photographers who at the last minute decided she wanted to pull her pictures, and I persuaded her not to, and she got at least one 8.5. So
Good.
Good job.
Which one was that?
it was the Umbrella Alley
Oh man,
right at the end there.
I had an opportunity to photograph that for a client one time, and her picture's better than mine. I guarantee you. No question about it. That was well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very well done.
Yeah.
Trying to remember here.
Hey, what's going on? Let's not play with my blinds, okay?
Who's that?
Thank you, Jim. Job well done.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
we really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, ditto. Thanks, Jim.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very
Anybody,
much.
any other comments or questions or anything like that? All
I
right.
don't have any. I'm sure they'll run through my mind later because that's how it works. But
Well, Mike knows my email. If you guys want to get in touch, I'd be happy to, comment any way that I can to help out. It's always good to, find like-minded people.
Great.
I'll send you an email, Jim, on a couple of pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Help
like-
if I can. Just remember that it's a two-way street. I'll have to send you some of mine. And you'll have to critique them too.
we'll
Right.
expect more action photos now. Get you
Yes.
out of your architecture static realm. You can,
Well, I got to go to Pensacola for that.
Right.
That as I said, my grandson's down there, and that was my wife just sits there and bawls the whole time.
Oh, that's cool.
She loves that kind of stuff. So
And Miramar, I think in September, they're going to have the air show. They'll have the Angels there as well. So,
Yeah, you should join us.
yeah.
Yeah. And we saw them
Possibility.
in Huntington Beach earlier this year.
Mhm.
Yep, they were out, and I think the Thunderbirds were coming out. I got a
Yeah.
buddy of mine who used to be a crew chief on the Thunderbirds.
Mhm.
Yep. The
Yeah.
Thunderbirds were there.
Yep, they had a
We
big
got some
air
good
show.
shots.
Great. I'm flabbergasted at how some of these guys shoot these things, and how good they come out. How the heck did you do that?
Right.
Yeah, very cool.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you for allowing me to help out. If there's anything else I can do, let me know.
Okay.
Jim, I hope you don't mind that we recorded this. We what we do is we post it on our website. It allows people to go back and you know, sort of particularly people who want to listen to the critique of their particular image again and things like that. So, and then there were a few people who had pictures in who probably couldn't make it tonight and might want to go and look at things. So,
For internal use only?
yes,
No problem.
For the club, yeah.
yeah,
Internal use only, I don't have a problem with that.
right. Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, no problem.
Okay.
All right, thank you all. Glad
you all.
everybody could
Okay.
join us.
Bye.
And
Louise and
Night-night.
Rodney and
Yes.
Jim, thanks, and everybody else.
thank you.